Welcome students to our lesson number 2, Rizal, a product of his time. So ang papatunayan natin ngayon, si Rizal ay produkto ng kanyang nakalipas. Just like all of us, we are all product of history. And then these are the things that we have to realize. Okay, number 1, we have to know the situation of the world during Rizal's time. And number 2, we're going to compare Rizal's time and our time. Okay, kung ano yung pinagkaiba, pinagkatulad ng ating panahon sa kanya. And then of course, there's this certain thing that I would like you to think about. Years from now, how will the people of the future will look back? Okay, sa panahong 2010 to 2020, what will be the defining characteristic of our time? Let me give you an example. 1960s, the world is labeled as Cold War, meaning to say, whether or either you are a democracy, or you are pro-democracy, or you are pro-communist or communism. So ganun yung hati ng mundo, democracy or communism. And then there came 1970s to 1980s, and economically speaking, the world was divided into first world country, third world countries. Wala namang second world, diba? Pero may second world. Yun yung mga kalaban ng US. And of course, these are the rich countries who actually labeled the era or the decade. And then we have the next label according to economics pa rin would be the developed countries, developing countries, and underdeveloped countries. So ganun yung hati. And then there came the World Trade Bombing, okay, September 11, I guess, yeah, September 11, 2001. And then the world was never the same after that bombing. Nahati naman ang mundo this time. Terrorist ka or pro-democracy ka. So ganun na naging hati. So what do you think will be the defining characteristic of our decade, especially this 2010 to 2020? Siyempre, alam na natin ang sagot. The pandemic era. Okay, so ang dami nagbago. So definitely, the reason why I chose this kind of activity for you to think what will be the label, what will be the characteristic or the defining trait of our decade years from now, dahil ikaw ay bunga ng kasaysayan. Okay? So alam mo ba na ikaw ay bunga ng kasaysayan ng isang gabing malamig, ang nanay at tatay mo ay nag-decide na ikaw ay mabuo and you are a product of history. And then, we have here, during my time, 1990s, of course, I'm a batang 1990s, sumikat si Taguro. Okay? Yung hairstyle, yung pajama niya, yung joggers, matagal na yan, pero ngayon pinapabalik siya. So may mga sumikat dati na paulit-ulit. Alam naman natin fashion come and go. And then of course we have this, I'm sorry again, this is my bias. I'm a batang 90s, definitely. So these are the Magic Spring, the balloon. Ay ako nagballoon kay dati ng elementary kayo. Rugby daw yan. Okay, so nilalaso natin sarili natin. We have Show Me the True Colors, Troll, okay, Bazooka. Hanggang ngayon may bazooka pa rin. And then of course yung Pogs. Yung Pogs yung ginaganon, pamalit sa text. So those are the time that I remember that vividly. 1990s like, oh wow, no problem, no virus. You just have to play and enjoy. Great time. Good old days. Now, let's go back to Rizal. Well, how was the world during Rizal's time? Okay, so part 1 pa lang ito. We're going to have part 2. We're going to have first the global situation or the context of Rizal when he was born. So during the 19th century, of course, the center stage of the world is Europe. Wala pa yung Amerika, wala pa yung ibang mga malalakas na bansa ngayon. Europe is the center of the world. Kaya nga sila ay nagsusulat ng kasaysayan. Sila ang may nagdrawing ng mapa. Okay, there was a time that these nation states, we call them, actually rule over Asia and Africa and even Latin America. So that was the situation of the world. Europe is the best and the shining spot of the world. And then of course there is this what we call the mechanism of the dominance of the European countries. We call that colonization and later on imperialism. What is colonization? So simply lang, colony. It started out sa mga Greeks. Well, whenever Greeks would trade, they would establish what we call the trading outpost. So ginaya ng mga mayaman na bansa yan, they colonize countries. Number 1 for resources, number 2 for surplus. Binibenta na yung product nila doon. But most of the time, during the colonization, it is because of the economic system na if you're a country and you want to prove that you are strong, dapat marami kang teritoryo at marami kang ginto. And then imperialism is way broader than colonization. Imperialism is like imperial, talagang majestic ka dapat. And this is the aspect of the time of Rizal na ang Pilipinas ay sakop ng Espanya because of imperialism and colonization. So therefore, economy of Philippines is of course tightly handled by Spain, as well as of course the politics. Kaya hindi nakakaporma mga Pilipino sa sarilang bayan. Because during the time when Rizal was born, the world, European countries, they have this thirst for colonization of lands and conquering lands. Okay? So this is the world map during the time. If we're going to see the colors, makita natin yung iba't ibang mga bansa at ang kanilang sakop. And the Spanish Empire is one of the largest. In fact, King Philip II of Spain says, the sun never sets on Spanish soil. Hindi raw lumulubog ang araw sa teritoryo ng Espanya. Bakit? Kapag umaga sa Europa, gabi sa Asia. At kapag umaga sa Asia, gabi sa Europa. So ang araw parang hindi siya nagpapahinga. So you would notice that in our map, the British Empire would be one of the largest, pero napakaliit lang ng Britain. Parang dot lang pero nasakop niya halos ang kalahati ng mundo. And even Spain, mahirap na bansa na ngayon ng Spain. So as of now, these countries are actually, most of them are weak. Spain is a poor country sa standard ng Europe, okay? France, of course, okay. Portuguese is also poor by the today's standard. German, of course, is the leader of EU. So I would like to stress that if you were born during that time, papanganak ka na ang makukuha mong mentality is, okay, sakop tayo. Okay, we are slaves. Okay, we are not free in our own land. So yun ang mentality na kung saan si Rizal ipapanganak. Number two, the prevailing order of the 19th century, aside from the economic and political setup with imperialism and colonialism, is the rise of science as the way of thinking. So nung time ng 19th century, unti-unting humina na ang control ng church. And then, dahil dyan, lalo na nung Black Death, di ba sa Black Death, the church failed to actually find the solution to Black Death. And then people resorted to the ancient magic they called alchemy na naging chemistry at naging science. And it became the uso. It became the norm. And eventually the scientists from being like labeled as witch or satanic people during the time, so they became the model of how to think. So makita niyo si Kepler, Galileo, Newton, si Bray, si Copernicus, si Ptolemy. These are the usher of the scientific thinking na kung saan age of enlightenment, naliwanagan. Okay? So si Rizal ipapanganak siya na ang science lumalakas. Hindi yung theology, it's not the church, though nandyan pa rin ng church. But of course, for the first time, people are questioning about the supremacy of the church when it comes to explaining things, lalo na yung natural law. Okay? So another thing is the human reason. So again, in 19th century, there's what we call the Renaissance, and it paved the way to the revival of humanism. What is humanism? Man is the measure of all things. Tayo ang basihan ng mga bagay. Galing sa mga Greeks yan. So humanism is a kind of thought. It's a school of thought na nagsasabi na you can be great as a person. You can be anything that you want. Okay, you can control your life, you can choose your destiny. And of course, it became the predecessor of existentialism. Meaning to say ng existentialism, ikaw ang bahala sa buhay mo. So again, there goes the opposite way of thinking compared to the dogmatic of the church, to the dogma of the church na ang sabi, faith. Human reason is saying, no, you have to see to believe. Meanwhile, religion is saying to believe is to see. And then of course, there are a lot of philosophers na nakapag-inspire sa mga tao to think. And for the first time, they are questioning the government. They are questioning how things are being run. They are questioning the prevailing order. Thus, medyo revolutionary ang panahon na kung saan ipapanganak si Rizal. Okay? And this is an example of salon. Salon, as of now, it's relegated to beauty parlor, but definitely during that time, it's an intellectual place where people of stature and intellect gathered to just discuss things and to brag and to just exchange ideas. Mga matatalinong tao at mga nasa alta de sociedad or nasa higher order. Another thing is the world where Rizal will be born is marred by revolutions. Okay? Puro revolution. Sa Europa, ang mga hari,